It's one of the best smartphone cameras I've ever used, but... This episode of Some Gadget Guy is brought to you by viewers like you, the amazing generosity of folks over on patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. A little more about this awesome community of nerds later in this video. A bit of a rambling follow-up to my experiences using the Vivo X100 Pro. This is proving to be one of my favorite phones of this and maybe any other year. I even have a script. I've just been using this thing a ton. You might have noticed I've started adding little tags to my videos, just what phone shot what B-roll. And increasingly, I'm using my nicer mirrorless cameras less and less and less. I have a second Panasonic that's over on a stand. It's kind of collecting dust right now, and I'm thinking of selling it because so much of my B-roll is coming from phones now. And so much of my B-roll this year was shot by this phone, the Vivo X100 Pro. It's these kinds of companies like Vivo and Xiaomi and Oppo and OnePlus. We don't always see the best follow through on what the experience is like as these phones get software updates, get patches, get bug fixes. We get so focused on the consumer aspect of mobile photography that I feel like the more professional applications can sometimes get left behind. There's a certain idea of taking a mobile camera and making it the most streamlined, point and shoot, easily accessible. It's a camera on training wheels for the average consumers. I already think that's kind of a dumb argument when we know that the vast majority of people out there are not spending upwards of $1,000 to cover the basics. That's not average in any market that we can examine how phones are sold. The Vivo X series is making a very specific kind of argument for its existence in higher level photography and video capabilities. And the X100 Pro has been living up to that reputation stunningly well. But what I find has been a little concerning is how this phone manages the camera sensors when you're in your Pro mode. This to me is one of the cardinal sins of a higher tier of device. If I'm in auto mode and I'm moving the camera around and I'm getting closer to something or getting farther away from something, I kind of have an expectation now that there are those training wheels. The phone will automatically start switching between the different camera sensors. The consumer might not know that they're picking the wrong sensor for that kind of a shot, and the phone tries to anticipate getting the better shot by moving that stuff around for you. In auto mode, totally get it. Totally understand. But unfortunately, that now seems to be happening in this phone's Pro mode, and I don't believe this was a situation that we had when this phone originally launched. Someone will have to correct me here if I have this wrong, but I did not notice such a stark transition moving between the main camera and the telephoto when I was in the Pro mode and making a conscious decision to pick different camera sensors for different applications. Now, it seems Vivo is ratcheting up the automatic handling of that for me, and it gets it wrong very often. Not just based on distance, but also available light, which kills me. It's the worst time to have the phone change the camera sensor for you. I was recently at my daughter's school's talent show. Got a bunch of little kids up on stage, and stage lighting is really hard for a smartphone camera to figure out how to expose for. It's a dark environment, so the phone wants to use the most capable light gathering sensor it can have, but then there's a harsh spotlight on the individual up on stage, and that's a great time to get your exposure from the smaller telephoto sensor when you're out in the audience, because the whole rest of the stage is supposed to be a little darker. Smartphone HDR photography can't figure that kind of stuff out. So when I'm in between the different acts, I'm trying to force this phone into using the telephoto sensor, and it keeps switching me back to the main wide sensor and then crop zooming all the way in, which just destroys the image fidelity when you're trying to get a 5 times telephoto zoom out of a wide angle sensor. A Pro mode needs to be a Pro mode, and a Pro needs to trust that the phone is going to listen to them when they make decisions on what hardware they're trying to use. There's already too much of this happening with a lot of our smartphone camera apps. If it's automatic gain control for the microphones when you're recording video, or overly heavy-handed noise reduction, or switching up sensors based on proximity and lighting, you can't trust what it's gonna do if the phone keeps changing things on you in the moment you're trying to shoot. I am, of course, going to send some of my feedback up to the PR folks at Vivo, but I would love to hear down in the comments if you're having similar issues with other manufacturers too. I think the macro mode on the OnePlus 12 is a little overly aggressive, and I keep having to tap that little bubble to turn it off when I'm trying to get the phone a little closer to my subject. Let me decide if I'm trying to focus on specific things in my frame. Don't keep changing up the performance for me. Drop me some comments down below, and hopefully this is also a video I can point other manufacturers to just to kind of head off. If you give us a pro mode or a manual mode, maybe trust us to make those kinds of content decisions. Sort of the point of a good camera app. And as I've been showing off some of these features and capabilities, the first folks who get to see my camera coverage are, of course, the amazing contributors over on patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. I greatly appreciate everyone who goes out of their way to help support their favorite YouTube channels. If you're subscribed to a channel, if you're sharing content across social media, and if you have the means, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could check out the Patreon, early access to videos, 4K content, behind the scenes, production diaries, the private Discord. Once more, patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. A huge thank you from the bottom of my heart, because those geeks are literally helping to keep the lights on here in the Gadget Lab. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy, basically everywhere these days, but I'm trying to spend a bit more time on the Mastodons, a little less so on the Facebooks and the Instagrams, and definitely not on the Twitters, and I will catch you all on the next video.